What is going on, guys? Back with another video. Hope you're all keeping well. So as the market remains pretty unstable with what is going on in regards to the Middle East, you just have to be patient and really, just learn to understand how this will play out and how the market will reverse eventually. Even despite what is going on in regards to the conflict, there is a lot of positive news going on in the background. You've got the likes of Tron going public in the US, also, bullish news for Solana in regards to the ETF, and, big whales continuing to accumulate, right? And you have to think in times of uncertainty, in times of conflict, there is potential for these alternative currencies such as crypto to really have a massive impact and standing in those times, right? So, of course, we hope that this does get some sort of, there's an agreement between the two. But as I've said, this is an ongoing situation, which of course we'll just have to pray gets resolved. But also, you've got news in regards to Vietnam passing a law to officially recognize crypto assets. And again, across the globe in different continents, we're seeing adoption continue, guys. And that's what you need to have the long-term vision. So in terms of rate cuts, guys, 2% chance for June, and for July, very small chance, 14%. September, around 40% chance. Ultimately, this gives you some more time, and you need to research, guys. You need to look for those potential projects. Today, we're going to focus on layer ones. I'm going to cover 6 layer ones, which I think could have some good potential. And again, guys, when it comes to layer ones, a lot of the layer ones are struggling. I know we've seen the likes of SUI, Solana perform, but when you go lower down the market cap level, some of the the higher cap projects, the smaller ones, are also struggling. So this is gonna have a massive opportunity for people to get in on these ecosystems in these different chains, and we're going to cover 6 which I think could have good potential, guys. So 4 of these are going to be what you could consider high cap, and then we're going to get into some mid low cap options, which are obviously going to come with more risk, right? So we're going to look at everything cap. We're going to look at the TVL, the amount of addresses, the volume, the fees, and also the ecosystem and how it's developing. So the first one, which I think could be a good DCA, is AVAX. Now AVAX, of course, is a high cap, $8 billion in market cap. I think this went to over 30 billion. Ultimately, guys, I still am bullish on AVAX. I know it is an older project, but it hasn't had the massive run that we've seen with the likes of Solana and SUI. It is still undervalued in my opinion. If you look at the yearly chart, it has pretty much just remained stable. Of course, we did see a rise towards the end of 2024. But what I like about AVAX, guys, is it is a massive, massive ecosystem, a huge amount of different projects from gaming, AI, RWA, memes. And when you look at the size, when you look at the TVL, 1.5 billion in TVL, of course, when you consider what this went to in November 2021, this was over 10 billion. And I do think it will make a massive comeback. When you look at the addresses and just generally, I think this is a very solid project, a massive community, and you can see that they're continuing to develop. You've got here working with different sort of real estate companies, $240 billion of real estate to come on chain. With this company here, Balcony Tech, and just consistent updates. They've consistently updated and developed throughout the bear market, and that is why I still do like AVAX. Right, it's a cheap chain, it's fast, and it has a very good ecosystem. So for me, AVAX is a project. If you're happy with some small returns, potentially, I would say 5-6x potentially, could it 10x potentially, but for me, I think 5-6x is more realistic for something like AVAX. So again, it is a very solid pick, and this is what I would pick over something like Solana currently, which is of course much higher in market cap. So AVAX for me is still solid. The second one for me is my favorite high cap in terms of risk reward, in the form of Sei, $1 billion in market cap. And as I've said, I've covered this many times, I really do like this project. It's fresh, it's new, it has massive backers behind it. It has a very good use case within different sectors, and ultimately it is very fast as well. And what I like about it as well is how they're planning to upgrade the chain, make it faster. reduce latency, and just make it better for projects to build on in the form of Sei Giga. So again, very good developments. They've got a good, good community, good engagement, and they've got a growing ecosystem. So what I like to do with projects like Sei is look at some of the projects building on Sei, which is still early, and the Sei ecosystem is still very, very fresh, right? You've got memes, you've got some gaming projects, but it'll be good to see some RWA, some AI projects, some deepen projects building on Sei, which I do think is going to come, guys. But ultimately, when you look at the TVL continues to increase, the amount of addresses increasing, the volume on dexes, the fees generated is continuing to increase. And for me, at 1 billion, this is a layer one which I could see doing a 10x plus. 10 billion is very achievable. Even potentially 20 billion, I think, is on the cards. So for me, this is a very good buy, and I'm continuing to DC into Sei. That would be the second one. And the third one is Aptos, another one which I do think goes under the radar. 3 billion in market cap, very good volume. And the other thing I like about this as well, it has a massive ecosystem growing continuously in different sectors: gaming, RWA, different dexes, DeFi. And again, not many people talk about Aptos. It's not really a chain that comes to mind. But in terms of the TVL, again, very healthy, 1 billion, over 1 billion in TVL. The addresses are continuing to increase. And overall, I do like Aptos. It's not my favorite layer one. For me personally, I would prefer to go for Sei. I think, it's smaller than Aptos, but, Aptos is another good option, which I think can give you some good returns. 5x, maybe, 5 to 10x potentially from here. It is a good project, and, they do have a growing ecosystem behind it as well. Good community as well. And, again, I do think it is worth some research, and it is a good project to potentially get exposure to. So that would be the third layer one. The fourth one you all know is SUI, and again, this is for people who are going to be happy with some smaller returns. This has already had its massive rally, and it is on a little bit of a dip, but it is only around 40% away from its all-time high of around, I think, 16 billion. So at this stage, guys, SUI is for someone who is looking for, I would say, around a 5x, maybe slightly higher, 5, 6, 7x potentially. Again, what I like about SUI, massive, massive ecosystem, huge amount of TVL, 1.8 billion in TVL. The addresses continue to increase, the volume is continue to increase, the fees generated continue to increase, and we're seeing more and more projects start to build on SUI, and this is only going to increase in the future. And I think SUI still has a lot more upside from here. I think, developers are going to want to choose a chain like SUI because it is just very impressive in terms of, what they're building. A massive community, continuing to develop, huge partnerships, huge backers, and it has a massive ecosystem, especially when it comes to DeFi, DEXs, and also we're seeing the potential with memes as well with SUI. So for me, this is still a project which has a good upside. It's not going to give you, as much returns as something like Sei, but it is still something, if you're happy with some small return, SUI is definitely a good pick. But, what I would like to point out is, SUI is over 10 billion, and, Sei is 1 billion. So for me, I like to look at Sei as a smaller SUI, and I think it can have the potential to, really perform. So now what we're going to do, guys, we're going to look at some of the more riskier plays. These two are going to be more risky, and the fourth one is going to be SUPRA, which has struggled. It is getting a lot of fear, a lot of FUD recently, very close to the bottom as well. And what I like about this, guys, I still believe this does have potential. Very early, in terms of the TVL, very early and very low. But again, that is potentially when you can see an opportunity. But again, they have a variety of different products, different use cases, and I do still believe this has a good future. In terms of its ecosystem as well, it is obviously small, but we're starting to see some more projects, their dexes, different sort of DeFi platforms as well, liquidity, and also in different sectors as well, such as AI. You've also got memes here as well. So again, SUPRA is high risk, but again, guys, it is very small market cap, around $50 million in market cap. Massive backers behind it as well, huge tier one backers, Coinbase, Hashkey Capital, and then some big tier twos and tier threes as well. And also has a good community, big community behind it as well. But as I've said, guys, this is, of course, higher risk. And the final one is going to be Plume, another project which has seen a massive sell-off recently, a lot of fear, a lot of FUD, of course, with the news in regards to one of the founders, which is really sad. But ultimately, guys, this is 240 million, again, pretty close to the bottom. But what I like about Plume is they continue to develop, right? And we all know how big RWA is going to be, and essentially this is looking to be one of the main chains for RWA. And what I like about this as well, it is already starting to grow a big ecosystem, 200 plus ecosystem partners. They've got a lot of assets, potential assets in the pipeline, and they've also got some pretty good TVL for such an early project, right? So this is definitely one to keep an eye out. I think this has some potential still in it. And also it does have a good ecosystem, and it has some massive backers as well behind it. You've got the likes of Binance Labs, you've got some other, big tier ones, and also some big tier threes. So for me, guys, this is definitely worth putting on your watch list, and it is one which I do think can make a comeback. Of course, it is higher risk, but for me, I do think, of course, they are going through a hard time, but I do expect this to make a comeback, guys. So there's 6 layer ones for you guys, which I do expect and do believe can have potential to perform. We've got high caps, and we've also got some of the smaller caps as well. What I will do as we continue to go through this run, I will cover the lower caps and the micro caps. I just think right now you should probably be focusing on the higher caps and the mid caps in the layer one sector. And I do think we will see money flow go to the smaller projects eventually. So let me know your thoughts on these projects, guys, and also other layer ones you're bullish on. I want to know what projects you like and what you're bullish on. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon for the next video.